All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode of Empowered in Health. As always, thank you so much for being here to join the conversation. You know, I had an agenda on my mind today of what I was going to talk about. And I really thought hard about whether or not that topic felt in alignment for where I truly am right now. And at the end of the day, it's not. At the end of the day, what I'm being called to do is share more of my life right now, right? Share very vulnerably a little more about my story and just where I'm at in this season of life. You know, one of the things that I talk about often on my podcast, on my social, and the things that I'm sharing out as a wellness coach is the power of being vulnerable, right? The power of sharing our stories and being honest. And one thing that you will learn about me over time is that I do not really hide how I'm feeling, where I'm at, the truth behind the curtain, so to speak. I really show up as authentically as possible. And sometimes you'll see that even in my appearance, right? What I'm wearing, what I look like. Sometimes you'll see that in how I speak in my podcast or in my stories or in my posts. And sometimes you'll see that in the different ways that I share. And here's the thing, for me personally, I really believe in the power of that level of deep authenticity. I'm not someone that shows up to life super put together all the time. I'm not someone who can live in a place of toxic positivity and pretending that everything is okay all the time. I'm not someone who will blow smoke, right? And share things that I don't feel are authentic and real. And that's where my heart's at today. You know, I had this vision of coming on and talking about the free group that I ran last week and talking a little bit more about EDCs and endocrine disrupting chemicals. And I will get to that. I think that's really important to talk about, especially when it comes to inside out wellness, learning about ourselves, learning about our environment, learning about our health. But today I'm going to talk a little bit more about my story and where I'm at. And one of the reasons I kind of felt called and pushed to do this is because it's May. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. May has been a month that I have highlighted throughout my coaching business for the past handful of years, right? Every year I've done a mental health give back in some capacity. You know, some years I've done, race events and have coordinated different ways to give back to charities and bring more awareness to the mental health discussion. And this year, I'm not doing a give back, but I very much still have top of mind how important it is to keep talking about mental health and normalizing this concept of it's okay to not be okay, right? It's okay to say, you know what, life is hard, life is heavy. I have a lot going on right now that I'm managing, and I just need to voice that. I need to be real. I need to be honest. I need to be raw. I need to share my truth. And again, when we do that, it gives permission to other people to do that too. And it breaks down this wall of feeling like we're meant to have it all together all the time. I'm here to tell you that that's not real life. And I'm here to tell you that it's okay to normalize that there are heavy and hard moments that we all go through in some way, in some season, for some reason. You know, one of the things that I have experienced personally in my life is this concept of feeling like sharing my honest truth was too much, right? Too serious, too much detail, too deep. You know, I've had that vibe and energy come across in many different situations in my life, right? And I had to learn along the way that says nothing about me, right? It really is just a matter of different conversations, different groups, different energies, different, situations. And it's hard when you have these mental health struggles specifically to feel like that is the level of energy that sometimes gets reciprocated, right? This focus on maybe being a little bit too much or a little bit too deep when you actually share about the hard in life, right? When you share about the mental health side to wellness. But I will not stop sharing about this. It really, truly is that important to me. And every time I do, God provides. Every time I do, there is a new connection, a new story, a new person telling me, thank you for sharing your truth. There is a new person that tells me They needed to hear the message. They needed to see the real and the raw. They were tired of the highlights and the highlight reels and the picture perfection that we all see all the time in the connected world that we live in. And again, so much of this connectedness is a blessing beyond words, and I will not ever discount that. At the same time, I want to make sure that we're always balancing the reality of what is real life and how are we just continuing to be honest through that. So here's where I'm at this month. I've been slowly sharing more about our family's profound health story, right? And particularly my son's health diagnosis. And that's something that I'm slowly starting to share about more. If you have followed me in any capacity, you know that one of the things that has been on my heart in relation to sharing his story is this reflection of deciding, is it my story to share or is it really his story to share? And where's the fine line of sharing online, right? Where's the fine line of talking about this on the internet? I have plenty of close friends that I speak to about this and have supported us tremendously as a family, which is such an incredible gift. But when it comes to making these bigger connections and essentially sharing more of our story outwardly, that is a real struggle that I have. Do I share more of this because it's my perspective of his story? Or do I share this because, I want to connect with other families and people that are going through the same thing we are? Or do I need to really take a step back and ask myself, is this even mine to share, right? Because at the end of the day, this is my son's health story. Now, I play a huge role in that as his mom, right? As his advocate, as his family. But there are pieces to his story that I'm still unpacking whether or not that's something that I should be sharing. So in a nutshell, this is kind of where I'm at and what I will share. My son has a very rare genetic disorder. And it is a disorder that is kind of a linchpin. And so it feeds into other kinds of diagnoses. And that has been the hurdle that we've been managing right now, right? Trying to figure out what are these other potential diagnoses? What are these other hurdles? What are they in regards to behavioral health and mental health? What are they in regards to his physical health? And what do we really need to continue to do to help support him in the best way possible? And this has been a really interesting journey for us because there's a lot unknown. And what we're dealing with right now is the seizure/epileptic component to this rare genetic disorder that we can't seem to control, right? We are managing seizures at night where we're not sleeping very well. And right now he's home from school this week because we're just trying to kind of manage what's going to be best for him. How can we help him? How can we make sure he has what his brain and body needs? And the reality of this situation on top of, managing a whole family, having 3 other children, activities, school, end of school year chaos, it's a lot, right? It's a lot of stress. As a mom, I'm not sleeping very well. As a mom, I'm extremely stressed out. And my personal mental health feels a little bit overwhelming in this season as I try to continue to figure out how to help serve and support my son, right? Why am I sharing this? Because I think, again, it's so important to be real and honest about the things that we're personally managing in our homes and in our lives. And if I'm honest right now, I'm not feeling okay, right? I feel like I can get up and function. I feel like I can still find a way to meet the needs of my family because, quite honestly, I don't really have a choice in that, right? That's the reality of motherhood. But at the end of the day, when I really unpack it, I'm not okay right now, right? I'm overwhelmed. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I feel a lot of anger. I feel a lot of resentment. I feel a lot of loneliness, right? Isolation. I feel just kind of beaten down. And I'm questioning a lot about why is this the reality in our house, right? Why is this the path, the story. Why was this written for us? I don't really know the answer to that. But here's what I do know. When you're going through profound challenges, right? Whether that's with your work, whether that's with your marriage, whether that's with your kids, your health. When you're going through profound challenges, it's not easy. There's nothing about it that's easy. It's incredibly challenging. That's why it's called a challenge, right? But at the same time, like in these harder seasons, harder moments, when we aren't okay, this is the time when we have to be looking inward more than ever, right? And this is the time when we have to be asking ourselves, what are the things that are going to help me stay as grounded as possible in this hard season? And what do I mean by grounded? It means like in your body, in your brain, and somewhat in the moment, in the present moment of, I know this is happening. I know this is hard, but what do I need to do to keep myself going? What do I need to do to take care of my wellness? What do I need to do to really protect my peace and do things that are going to fuel my body and brain with some level of energy and motivation and positivity? Because those are the key things that really help us in these seasons of challenge and hard. This is why I talk so deeply about inside out wellness and how wellness is intertwined. Because in these seasons, like I'm kind of in right now, this is when I have to lean harder than I ever have on the habits and practices that I know will actually help me feel even marginally better, right? Because if I don't lean on them, they're going to lead to things, or I'm going to lead myself into things that I know will make me feel 100 times worse, right? So for me, even in these harder seasons, like feeling marginally better, or at least staying somewhat grounded and somewhat positive and somewhat motivated to keep putting one foot in front of the other, is the better choice than doing things that make me feel 100 times worse. And I've learned, again, over time through my own mental health journey, which I've shared several different ways on the podcast and in posts and things like that you're more than welcome to look through. I'll actually drop some previous podcast links in the show notes here too. But I've learned firsthand, what does my body and my brain need in these harder, challenging seasons in order to really feel okay? What does my body and brain need in order to really put one foot in front of the other? And it really usually comes back to the core habits, right? The core practices in my day that I know will protect my peace in some way. Now, I will say, like, this season has felt more challenging than ever before because now I'm not sleeping well, right? And for me, quality sleep and getting rest and being able to shut my mind off and like sleep with peace of mind and getting quality rest is a huge part of my personal wellness and being able to show up well for my family. And right now I don't have that, right? Right now I don't have that consistently. My husband and I are switching off, making sure that my son stays safe at night. And that's hard, right? To have that kind of pulled out from underneath you when you have that, when you know that's a need, like a core need of really being able to tackle the day, right? So what do I do instead? I control the other things that I can, right? I do my best to make sure that I'm eating as well as possible. I do my best to make sure that I'm not filling my brain with things that aren't going to actually lead to positive mental soundtracks and things like that. You know, I'm getting outside as much as I can. I'm talking to friends and connecting and making sure that I'm staying grounded in people that are really supporting us as wholeheartedly as possible. You know, I'm moving my body. I'm praying a lot. I'm journaling, trying to read and research, and again, controlling the things that I can. And every season, especially the challenging seasons, that may look a little different. That may look a little different. And there may be things that you can't necessarily lean on quite as much. For me right now, that's rest and sleep, and that's tough. It's tough for me. You can probably see it on my face. For those of you that are watching this podcast on YouTube. it's a pretty overwhelming thing when you have something that feels so out of your control in your life, right? Something that is really a vivid, profound part of your story, but you don't really know why, but you're still figuring out how to manage it, right? We all have that in some way in our life. We all have that in some way in our life. So how do we keep pressing forward? How do we stay encouraged? I think one of the key steps to that, honestly, is saying, I'm not okay in this, right? And normalizing those feelings and talking very raw and honestly about the depth of support you may need. And this is something that I'm working on continuing to talk through and express every single day. And again, this is why I'm sharing this here, because I want people to understand how powerful it is to normalize the hard feelings and the hard seasons and the challenges, right? That doesn't mean we live here. That doesn't mean we stay stuck in this space. That doesn't mean that this is our story for forever. That doesn't mean that this is going to be our circumstance for always. But one of the best ways to actually continue to press through it and move through it is to speak through it, right? Talk through it, normalize through it, like name the hard, name the feelings, be okay with really voicing exactly what's going on. Because I will tell you, one of the most unhealthy practices we can actually do for our bodies and our brains emotionally and mentally is burying how we feel, burying our situation or our circumstances, burying what may be feeling really hard in our life. That's one of the most powerful things I've learned through therapy. That's one of the most powerful things I've learned through my studies in social work and psychology. And it's one of the things I want to continue to empower people to know forever. How important it is to just speak through and normalize the hard. Because at the end of the day, it's okay to not be okay. And I'll tell you right now, during May Mental Health Month and everything that we're personally managing in our life, and with my son's diagnosis and everything that we continue to uncover every single day, I don't feel really okay right now, right? I'm doing what I need to show up. And I'm doing what I need to stay grounded and in a positive headspace as much as possible. But if you ask me if I'm really truly okay, right now I'm not really truly okay. And you know what? That's okay. All it means is I'm naming the feelings. All it means is I'm naming the challenge. And now coming up with one step at a time to continue to help myself press forward through this season in order to get to a place where I know will inevitably be more growth, more opportunity for learning, and just new things, right? New things. So at the end of the day, I hope that this message encouraged you in some way, or at least, I don't know if encouraged is the right word, maybe empowered you to say, you know what, maybe I have something hard in my life and I just want to talk about it a little bit more. I want to normalize it a little bit more. I want to journal it. I want to pray about it. I want to talk to somebody about it. I want someone to share with me about how it's okay to not be okay, right? It's okay to not be okay. And this is, again, something that we have to keep sharing as humans, because we can get really tricked into believing that the whole world around us is perfect, especially with the highlight reels and the overly connected space that we live in with technology and the world right now. I pray that, again, you received something from this message today of me sharing my vulnerable truth and sharing a little bit more about where I'm at, and sharing a little bit more about our life. It was funny. I was coming into this room today to record this podcast, and my son is home from school today. We kept him home again. And he looked at me and said, "Hey, Mom, what are you going to record today for your podcast? What are you going to record?" And I said, "I don't know, buddy. What should I record?" And he said, "Well, why don't you just talk about life? Why don't you just talk about, my week with you, or your week with me, or whatever?" And I said, "You know what? Yeah, that's what I'll talk about today. That's what I'll talk about today." Because that feels just real and honest and exactly where I'm at right now. And I just think there's a lot of power in being that real and honest and vulnerable. So I can't thank you guys enough for tuning in today. I'll see you in the next one.